I'm Dr. Bernous, though many people know me simply as Dr. B or Dr. BB. Today I'm pleased to welcome Negin Kordbacheh, an Ayurvedic health coach, Ayurvedic body therapist, and certified yoga instructor dedicated to helping individuals restore balance and vitality through the principles of Ayurveda. She is a long-standing member of the National Ayurvedic Medical Association and also holds specialized training in Ayurvedic conscious postpartum care and a master's degree in industrial psychology. As the founder of Roshana Healing, Negin integrates lifestyle education, constitutional assessment, nutritional and digestive guidance, pranayama, and restorative Ayurvedic body therapies. Through her consultations and workshops, she offers a grounded and an accessible path towards holistic healing and deeper self-awareness. Welcome, Negin Jan, to Astana Podcast. We are so happy to have you here. And why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so we get to know you better?
Sure, it is an honor to be here. I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner, yoga instructor. I also have certification in Ayurvedic body therapies and postpartum care. So I got these certifications throughout time. I can tell you a little bit about how I got into Ayurveda,
Wow,
but
sure. No, but there is a but. Okay,
but I
but.
want you to lead the questions.
No, this is great. I mean, why should I lead that? I was about to ask you that how you got into Ayurveda and you started that way. Please, by all means.
It is actually a very interesting story. So about 10 years ago, I had eczema that came on my hand. Essentially, it was a very abrupt symptom that I had that I went to my primary care. And I was given a cream and told that every time that it comes up, just put this on and that should take care of it. But being very curious typically about these things, I wasn't convinced. I thought there's more to it. So at that time, my girlfriend was going through the program and she said, why don't you come and see my doctor?
Program? Which program?
Ayurvedic program.
Okay.
So I did, and it was a very interesting doctor visit. When I walked in, I was running around, so I was trying to catch my breath, and I just sat down, and he said, well, why don't we meditate? And I said, oh, meditate. Okay, this is interesting. So we arrived essentially through meditation, and then he took my pulse, Ayurvedic pulse, checked my tongue, and he said, your blood is heated. And explained to me what Pitta dosha is, which we can talk about today. And that was very interesting because it made total sense because the symptom that I was having was red as far as its texture. And the heat quality had led to the eczema. There was a 2-week remedy that I did, and after that, eczema was gone, never saw a sight of it again.
Wow.
And it was very interesting because it made me realize that there's a root cause with every symptom. I was enrolled in college up north about 6 months after that, and here I am.
Wow, it's very interesting. So this was really with a personal experience
Yes.
that you were convinced that this system works, because one of my questions was that how relevant is Ayurveda in today's time? And I think your opening was great. So you saw result, then you got convinced that it's your path.
Yes, that is my path because there was an innate connection that I had with what the doctor said, and it just made sense to me. And then I realized that it is more of a lifestyle because he made certain recommendations about my lifestyle changes that I did. And about 2 weeks later, with some of the herbal remedies that I had, I was cured essentially. And so that led me to want to learn more and to pursue going to study this beautiful field.
So if I understand correctly, Ayurveda is more than just a body aspect, right?
Yes.
So it's more than just a dietary approach.
Oh,
Can you tell us
absolutely.
more about what Ayurveda is in
Yeah.
general, please?
Absolutely. So Ayurveda by definition means the knowledge of life. So Ayur means life and Veda means knowledge. And it is a holistic, old but traditional system of healing from India that dates back to over 5,000 years. And it is our alignment with nature essentially. So you can think about it as the macrocosm. We are the microcosm. We're essentially a little bit of that bigger picture, of that higher consciousness. And all things in nature and life are made up of the five elements, and we are a part of that. So, through understanding our rhythms with nature and how it reflects in our own bodies, we are able to create balance. So, it is that interplay between understanding what our nature is and finding balance through that.
And how do we do that? Are there any system? Because you said he measured my, status. No, you
Yes.
said what? My blood. You said
Yes,
so. There must be some way of measuring, right,
absolutely.
in the system, right?
Yes,
Would you talk about that?
absolutely. So I think it would be good to take a step back and talk about the elements first.
Okay.
So the five great elements are the foundations of Ayurveda. They are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. And by understanding the qualities of these elements in nature, we can understand the quality of the elements in our bodies.
Okay.
So, earth is considered stability, right? Nurturance. In our body, this translates to our bones, ligaments, and muscles. Water is fluidity, and in our body, this is our lymphatic system and lubrication. Then you have fire, air, and ether similarly, holding different functions. So these elements, they are organized into governing energies called doshas.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Because it's fascinating. So you said about the earth, you said about the fire, you said about the air, ether you mentioned. Is it
Yeah.
something like soul? Is that what equates to soul, or is it another
That's
another
a
element?
great question. So ether is essentially space. It's that which holds everything together. So when you think about the galaxies, that's ether holding everything together. In our body, those are cavities that we refer to as ether.
Ah,
So
okay.
essentially, our ear canal, our nose cavity, our digestive tract cavity, without it, things cannot be present. They cannot be held in space.
And what about fire?
Fire is heat, right? So it is transformation, digestion, metabolism. And air, which we haven't talked about, is movement. So within our body, that is circulation, movement of thought, movement of food. So these elements have a different role within each of these different functions in the body.
So even movement of thought you mentioned,
Movement of thought,
it's
that's
considered as air
air
element.
quality. So when you think about air, think about wind, right?
Yeah.
Wind moves.
I thought maybe the air in our lungs or
That also is considered
oh,
prana or
so it
vata.
includes it's very interesting. So it's not only the physical aspects. When we talk about elements, we are also talking about the psyche and the psychological or spiritual aspects of each element.
Absolutely. So when you think about the elements, think about it in terms of everything in life. A table, a room, food, seasons, age, they can all be explained through the elements and the doshas. So we have vata time of year, we also have vata season, we have vata time of day, we have air time. So these elements, if you think about them as present in everything, including us, then understanding the relationship will allow us to know what would be supportive for our being and what wouldn't. And Ayurveda is very unique. So it doesn't necessarily look at disease or dis-ease, we call it, from a symptoms perspective. It is more understanding how we can restore balance, bring balance back to the mind, body, and emotions.
So it revolves around maintaining a balance,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And
absolutely.
how do we achieve balance? Is it by having a certain amount of each element flowing at the same time?
Yeah,
Is it how do we achieve that balance?
that's a great question also. So when we think about these elements that I described, they form these three governing energies, vata, pitta, and kapha. So at the time of birth, at the time of conception, these elements form your constitution.
Okay.
You can think about it as your unique blueprint. It is almost like a user's manual that allows you to know how to function as an individual based on the elements. So, for example, Prakriti, which is your original constitution, it is the proportion of these elements. So let's just say in me, the air quality or vata dosha is more dominant than pitta, which is the fire.
You're born with it.
Yes, I'm
Okay.
born with it. So I take a little bit from my parents' doshas. So this very specific constitution, which we understand through a very comprehensive evaluation, we are then able to say, okay, this is the baseline. This is the state where you're most balanced. This is where you feel like you're most your authentic self.
And by balancing the maybe excess of some elements.
Yes. So essentially, when we know the baseline, and this is gathered through your structural or your physical, essentially, structure, your long term tendencies, your habits, your medical history through your family lineage, all of that that forms your constitution gives us that baseline. This baseline is where you're most balanced. Now, then we go about life, right? We grow up, we go about life, we have our diets, our stress, our different factors, our work, our families, our relationships. All of these things can throw those elements a little off track, which means they can become in excess, they can become aggravated. Once they're aggravated, then the baseline shifts to a state of vikruti, which is imbalance. And the goal of Ayurveda is to return the individual elements back to their state of home, the prakruti. So essentially, we're trying to close that gap. And the way that we do that is through proposing opposite qualities. So when you think about the air quality, air is very mobile, it's very expansive, it can be dry, it can be cold. So by introducing opposite qualities, we can harness that vata dosha and bring it back home.
So, if I understand it correctly, are we assuming at the moment of birth is the infant balanced, or there could be imbalances that throughout life we will try to achieve the state of balance, right?
Yes, so there could be genetic markers that a child is born with, and those are different. Those are conditions that a baby can be born with. But when you think about the genetic makeup of or their prakruti, their Ayurvedic constitution, that is just the elements involved. So when they're born, that is its most balanced state. Now, if somebody is born with a precondition, let's just say they're born premature, maybe they're born with certain genetic markers, then we can still work with that, but that's a different topic.
And then in this system, because it's very interesting what you're saying is that Ayurveda is considering mind, body, and soul per se, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So when you bring some dietary solutions to the problems at times that is necessary, like what you said about your experience with eczema, what about when you talked about the movement of thought? Because as a psychologist, I'm interested. And by the way, we need to bring your background into this, that you also have a graduate degree in psychology.
I do.
So what about that aspect? So I mean, in Ayurveda, I'm interested to know, what do we do if we see someone is depressed, for example, or anxious, let's say. It's a lot of movement of thoughts. If I want to look at it from that lens, how do we address that in Ayurveda if someone is anxious? Do we have any remedies for it?
Yes, so anxiety is excess movement of thought, essentially. So when you think about movement, the dosha that's active or in excess is vata dosha, the air and ether qualities. Essentially, every dosha, which is called fault by definition, so dosha means fault. So you can think about it as the waves of the ocean. They come to the shore, they crash, they go all the way to the shoreline, and then they're pulled back. So when symptoms are left alone, so we have a very busy, lifestyle, we skip meals, we're not sleeping on time, we have a lot of stressors, and also a lot of movement. Today's world gives us a lot of that constant motion. All this constant motion can raise the vata dosha, the air quality. When over time it accumulates and then it becomes aggravated is when anxiety can start to form. Now, I also have to mention that traumas, different family histories can have an effect on it. But typically, from an elemental standpoint, it is the vata dosha that is in excess, which is causing that swirling of thoughts and the anxiety. So when we think about, or let's say kapha, who's someone who is depressed, has a lot of earth energy. They're very down. Things are heavy. Somebody who has a lot of anger, they have a lot of pitta dosha, a lot of fiery energy. So we can look at psychology and Ayurveda as very interconnected, because when we understand the elements in the mind, then we're able to say, okay, so this particular element is out of balance. So we
And how
have,
do you work with it though? That's what I'm interested
yes.
to know. When you see you and you identify which element is out of balance, how from this Ayurvedic perspective we approach the issue of trauma, anxiety, or depression.
Yes. From a remedy standpoint, we always want to bring in the opposite qualities. So when we think about air and ether, for example, they are very expansive. They're literally in the air. So we need to ground that energy. We need to pull that energy down by bringing, let's just say, nourishing foods, foods that are heavy, moist, and warm. When you think about a meditation can be a very grounding experience. Using warm oils to massage the body is a very grounding experience. Utilizing regular schedules to get rid of that scattered mindset. These are just some of the examples in which we can bring in to support reducing the Vata dosha. However, from a psychology standpoint, so when you have a client that comes in and they're anxious, we can look at it just as the mind or the mind and the body, that interconnectedness. And so when we treat anxiety from a mind perspective, but also the body perspective as a holistic approach, then we're solving the whole problem, not just half of the problem. And vice versa. If someone comes to me and says, I have anxiety, I have trauma, I have depression, and if I only treat the body, the mind is not my expertise. So although I can soften the mind, I can ground the mind, but they have to come to a psychologist. So it's a very integrative approach to healing.
So then you work along with, what you provide, the services you provide. You also work with mental health practitioners.
I like to because I feel like it's a wonderful, connection to provide that holistic healing. I currently do that. So my husband being a psychologist, we have clients that we have an agreement, confidentiality agreement, that if he sees the need that they need to be supported on a physical level, he would send them my way, and then I do my analysis so I can support the body and he supports the mind.
I think actually, it's very interesting what we're talking about. I was thinking about this last night, that when I'm looking at it from a perspective of current psychological approaches, there is a part of the picture missing, which is the body aspect. Despite I know so many schools of psychology are bringing the body approach to it, but I was thinking, it would be a great modality, a great approach if somebody comes for therapy. And actually, we were talking with a couple of friends about it. Imagine someone comes in first before starting therapy session, which is heavy. They do a little bit, and we used to do that with some clients, like a short 3 minutes mindfulness meditation body scan. Then they continue do the therapy, talk about the difficult things, express their feelings, and then imagine right after that, then they come to you, the next room, and then you will work with them with the body aspect of it. Don't you think that such an approach would be very helpful?
I think it would be very beautiful because, again, when we think about the human psyche, the human body, the human mind, and also emotions, it's all interconnected. So when we look at the human as a whole, there's so many different layers involved. So if I'm not eating properly and I'm getting malnourished, essentially, over time, if I'm skipping meals, that can affect the mind. The quality of the mind can become depleted. Cognition can be depleted. You can get mental fatigue. And then if you accumulate that over time, that's where those Western symptoms start to come about. Because Ayurveda treats the root, but not the root of the symptom, the root of the element. So essentially, I always tell my clients, listen to the whispers of your body. So one great example is gas and bloating. It's a common problem. But we see it as a very normal symptom. It's not. That's a sign, that's a signal where your body is telling you, is communicating with you that something is off. So if we let that just go and, it's a normal part of life, over time that can increase the Vata dosha and lead to symptoms such as, dryness of the body, anxiety, insomnia, all of those qualities.
It's very interesting what you're mentioning right now about the root element of the issue, not just the symptoms. It reminds me of the approach that I really like in psychology, which is psychoanalytic, psychodynamic. It always goes after the root cause. It doesn't go after symptoms. It doesn't say that, okay, someone is coming with anxiety and depression. We don't necessarily just attend to that. We do attend to reducing the symptoms, but we go after the root cause of the problem, which is in the unconscious. We look at it, there are issues. But in a way, what you're saying, it seems that deeper modalities, if we might use that term, go after the root cause of the issues. And what you're, talking about is very interesting to me, because we are also talking about the body and mind connection, and we don't
Absolutely.
keep them separate. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your psychology and psychological background and education?
Absolutely. So I have my master's in industrial psychology, and that's a field that I was in for 13 years.
Oh,
And I now do integrate that into my practice because I can utilize surveys, for example, to establish a baseline of where the individual is, look at their symptoms, look at how they feel, and a whole comprehensive analysis, and then we check back, let's say in 6 months. So the psychology aspect allows me to understand not only how to assess the client's needs better using SMART goals, using different strategies, but also it allows me to just have that broader perspective, like you said, that the mind and the body, they're very interconnected. So when I was in the corporate field, I had the curiosity for this side of things, where I would be sitting in a meeting and looking at the different ways that personalities of, let's just say, coworkers, leaders would come into play. I had a leader who was incredibly fiery, and now I know that. I know what that means. A lot of leaders have a lot of pitta dosha active, a lot of fire. They make decisions very quickly. They're very logical. They're very perceptive. They're very to the point. They don't beat around the bush. So it's very interesting because my psychology background allowed me to look at personalities from an Ayurvedic perspective a lot more in depth than I would have without it. So now I can really bring in both into my practice. But you're absolutely right. The mind body they're so interconnected. And one of my goals is to bring Ayurveda into psychology, be able to work with different colleagues in the psychology world, and be able to see how we can approach this more holistically. Because again, if somebody is getting support through therapy, but they're not supporting the body,
yes,
they can keep returning to those symptoms.
absolutely.
They're not getting that nourishment.
Absolutely. And I think they're so interconnected that healing both at the same time is the key,
Yeah.
because they impact each other. And from this perspective, when you talk about personalities and the elements, it's very interesting that you see someone that is like type A, they call them, right?
Yes.
Psychology is very, driven, go after making decisions. Then you see it as a fire element being more dominant and active in that
Yes,
person,
absolutely.
right? That's it. So you managed to bring these two together. Are you still practicing in the industrial psychology field?
No, once I had that transition, my heart was completely on this side with Ayurveda. And it was a very, I would say, innate decision. When it came about, I never looked back. I just knew that this is my calling. But to be able to use the knowledge that I had for 13 years into my practice, I think is such a gift. And to add on to what you were saying about personalities, so when you think about, and this is the other beauty about Ayurveda, it is incredibly innate. So you don't necessarily chase balance, you restore balance that's already there. And when you think about the elements, so let's think about the fire element, like you said. When I think about fire, I see and I feel like it's passion, it's drive. It also can be unpredictable because when you look at like literally a flame, it goes up and down, it's not steady. But at the same time, it's very sharp. It draws you in. So people that have a lot of pitta, they have this charisma about them that shows up in the work, in the relationships, in the way that they are. Kappas, for example, they are really calm and they're very earthy. So when kappa comes into a room, things just feel calmer. They feel more grounded. So if you need to have, and again, when you think about the work industry, having that understanding of different personalities of the doshas helps you even decide what field you would be better at, how you can support your industry better. So these are great insights that once you have it, like I said, it's almost like this blueprint, this user's manual that allows you to function better in the world.
So
in
you
every
see
way.
them pretty applicable even in our today's time,
Absolutely.
and they are still relevant.
Very relevant. I teach a lifestyle workshop, Ayurveda lifestyle workshop, and one of the things that I find really interesting is once you understand your Prakriti, because there's a section where we just learn what is our Prakriti in class. Once you understand that, then you can also look at your loved ones and figure out their constitution. So there's these aha moments of, oh, so my husband is Pitta. Okay, now I understand why XYZ. Or now I understand why my mom is more Kapha. So that knowledge really gives you insights not only for yourself, but for the world around you and how to better show up and how to function better, how to everything, eat
Yeah.
better, work better, sleep better.
But would you, in that system, consider the environmental factors that impact the individual, like a parenting style, like, because what I'm hearing is that, help me understand this. From one aspect, we're talking about the individual being born predisposed with certain elements.
Hmm.
And throughout life, things happen that the balance shifts in that
Hmm.
individual. And these elements could be internal, like the thought moving around, as you said, like anxiety, moving thoughts, right? Or it could be external factors like trauma,
Hmm.
parenting style, socioeconomic situations, right?
Hmm.
So, do we pay attention to the external factors, or we only in Ayurveda focus on the individual?
You can look at it this way that external factors affect the internal factors, right? So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm exposed to my environment, as simple as your sensory inputs, what I see, what I hear, what I
Mm-hmm.
smell, what I touch, and what I taste. All of these sensory inputs are imprints on the mind, on the body. So trauma, for example, that's an imprint. That's something that I take in. And some of us may be exposed to that incident and nothing happens. Others are exposed and it turns into trauma. So that's a condition that we support essentially from an Ayurvedic standpoint to bring balance into. So maybe we cannot uh, get rid of that memory or that trauma. At least that's not my area of expertise. That would be someone like yourself that can work with the client. But I can support the incident that has thrown off their vikruti, their current state, and try to bring them back to a normal state. So someone who has had trauma, maybe they're getting a lot of sleepless nights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe they're having relationship challenges where they're really angry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I would support them to sleep better at night by having certain practices and routines throughout their day that would calm the mind, that would calm and ground the body. If they have a lot of anger, we want to avoid certain diets that can induce that. So I would say, okay, let's have an anti-inflammatory diet, and we're going to avoid certain things like spicy foods or foods that can be prone to allergies, which are really pitta vitiating or pitta aggravating. So essentially, you're absolutely right. The environment sometimes we cannot control, but what we can control is how to nourish the body and to nourish the mind.
Mm-hmm.
That would alleviate some of those symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. I'm sure probably you've heard this, that some people might come to you and they're already on certain medications.
Mhm.
What are your approach or Ayurvedic approach to people that are already taking certain
Mhm.
medications? Because I've heard sometimes, I'm not saying necessarily it's your case, sometimes they might get, you know, encouraged to not take certain medications or take, I'm assuming you're
Mhm.
not,
Mm-mm.
doing anything, touching anything about the medications
No.
and anything that they're taking.
No, and that is not my area of expertise, obviously, because I'm not a medical doctor or a psychiatrist. However, I take everything into consideration. So when someone comes to me, we do a very comprehensive evaluation. Everything you can think of. They have a long intake that they have to complete. It's a form, and then they come to me, and then there's a 90-minute session where I review everything. So that information makes me a lot more insightful of their current, who are they seeing, who are their current practitioners, what doctors, what medications, what past surgeries, what potential family histories, everything considered. That's when I write the program. If there is medications involved and if I want to prescribe them herbs, I look at interactions to make sure that nothing will be causing a conflict. And the other thing, because Ayurveda is not a quick fix and it's more of a lifestyle, we start by incorporating lifestyle changes. So you can think about every small step, every small habit that forms is shifting the doshas slightly back to a state of balance. So it's not a very, what's the word, intense approach by any means. It's actually very gentle.
Uh-huh.
And absolutely, if someone's taking medications, I don't have the say of what they should, reduce or not have. But I may introduce an herb, and eventually, once the individual's psyche or body is more supported, maybe they don't need the medications as much. So maybe they can recheck with their doctors after a certain time and have them re-examine their
The
medication.
reason I asked that because I had an actual client that was under care of physicians, taking medications. He traveled to Iran. He met with someone who was a holistic practitioner, according to his own report, from Russia, a Russian. And then the person told him, you know what, these medications are hurting you. And in my approach, you don't need to do this, and put him on some herbs, right? And this individual ended up having strokes.
Oh, wow.
In Iran. Then when he came back, he lost, senses in half of his body, and it was not reversible. It was irreversible, right? And he was reporting that. That's why I asked that. And I know that a lot of times we might really go into some dangerous areas, because I've seen cases like that, and the person was hurt because of that Russian, claimed medicine man, whatever we call it. I don't know. Have you heard anything about being any traditional Russian approaches in this?
I haven't, but there are many cultures that are very black and white. So they may approach things a little too harsh, in my opinion, especially when it comes to psychedelic medication, and not psychedelic. Well, I guess it would be just medication that's used for the psyche in any way. Pharmaceutical.
Psychotropics.
Thank you, psychotropics. There can be some addictive quality to it.
Yes.
And therefore, it is very important how we go about it. But again, it's not my field. However, I've had cases where I would work side by side other practitioners. So maybe I can have a conversation with their doctor and say, this is my approach, and we just ensure that we're on the same page. But I for sure disagree with that approach of just going cold turkey and disrupting a current process, because that can actually damage the body.
Yeah. And my understanding is in Ayurveda, you also touch upon, because you yourself are also a yoga instructor.
I am, yes.
So is it yoga also part of the Ayurveda? Do you
Yes.
use that?
Yes. So yoga is a sister science of Ayurveda. And this is interesting because although yoga is focused on asanas or on those poses, on movement, it actually is more inclined for the mind.
Yes.
Because it allows you to go more inward, to quiet the mind through the poses, through alignment. And Ayurveda is now focused on the body. So we have the mind through yoga, we have the body through Ayurveda. So they're sister philosophies and sister sciences. So if we can merge
Both of them are sisters? There is no brother?
Not that I know of.
Okay, so both of them are feminine.
They're family.
Okay, I just want to clarify.
Yes. So if we can bring them together as
Maybe
as
psychology is the
relative.
brother?
Maybe.
Can we say
there
that?
you go. Psychology
I
is the
felt
brother.
I felt left out. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Psychology can be the
The
brothers.
brother.
So
So
they're
the yoga
a
and
family.
Ayurveda, so they go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So you use that, because I know
Yes.
you're a yoga instructor, and I've had the pleasure of seeing that
Yeah.
you conduct yoga workshops.
Yes.
So that is also helping, because yoga, as you know better than I do, is that yoga in Western countries is misperceived, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's not about the fit body and healthy body. It's mostly about enlightenment. It's about state of mind. But here they're packaging it in a way that is good to lose weight
Yes.
and to have a trim body and this like that.
Absolutely.
So then you utilize the real yoga
Yes.
with your clients along the Ayurvedic practices.
Absolutely. There are 8 limbs, they say, of yoga, essentially different pathways you can take. So yoga is truly a principle of life, I would say. It's not necessarily just asanas or movements, which is what it's been known for. And there's different types. You have hatha yoga, vinyasa, flow, iyengar, yin, Kundalini, absolutely. So there are different approaches. Some of them are traditional, which is what my approach is. And then there's others that are fusion. You know, we have hot yoga, we have power yoga, which are a little bit more,
Modern
yes, modern and fusion and deviated from the core of what it's supposed to be, in my perspective. So they're as like you said, losing weight, getting stronger. You will get stronger and perhaps even lose weight through hatha yoga, but it's just a different way of looking at it, different practices. So pranayama, for example, which is breath work, is also one of the limbs of yoga. So that's also what I utilize in my classes. So both from a yoga and Ayurvedic perspective, I like to bring it in a very holistic approach. That's why the mind side of things, working with a psychologist side by side, is so powerful. Because there's areas that I don't have the expertise, and I can support the body, but I cannot necessarily tap into the mind the way that
it's
psychology.
fascinating that you and your husband work together and bringing these two sides together, psychology and Ayurveda. And do you get this? Maybe it's a question on a lot of people's minds. Do you get some backlash from some people feeling like that you're bringing a 5,000 years old practice into this modern world? Would you get some resistance or backlash?
Yes. So this happens mostly when I have clients that come in and they have a very quick fix mindset approach. So they come in and they feel like there should be a pill that makes all their problems go away, right? And we know that life doesn't work that way.
My God, yeah.
Even, sure, if you have a headache, you can take a Tylenol or an Advil and it will support it. But because Ayurveda is a lifestyle, I always tell my clients 6 to 12 months should be a commitment if you really want to transition to living an Ayurvedic lifestyle, if you really want to embody the changes as a lifestyle. So sometimes I have clients that come in and after a few sessions, they don't see the magic pill working, or they refuse to do the remedies that I'm recommending. As a result, they may get cold feet and just walk away. Or the other thing that I am currently trying to actively shift is lack of education, not knowing what Ayurveda is, not knowing this beautiful science. You may not have an inclination to, or you may not be gravitated towards it. But once the door opens and you have that understanding, there is this almost innate feeling that comes about, this aha moment, like that, in the cartoons they would show the light bulb just showing up. So that's what it is. The second you get it, you are just hooked. Like, this just makes sense. But there are those
But see, that's
outliers.
a kind of a problem of our time. It's not just about your work. It's everywhere in psychology, in medicine. It's an instant gratification of desire that in my opinion, because of technological advancements, everything is almost readily available.
Yes.
In our time, when we were taking pictures, we had to wait, send it to the lab, wait for it till you get to see it. Now, on our cell phones, we take a picture, we want to see it right away. And we got this, we want to order something online, we want same day delivery, same day, it should be here. And we got this assumption that we ask a question from Google or from ChatGPT, while when we were kids, we had to go to the, Library of Congress to get some information if we were lucky. So I think our psyche have shifted towards this instant gratification of desire, that people are expecting everything to work instantly. So you also facing with that,
Absolutely.
demand that I want everything, I want it and fixed, and I want it now.
Absolutely. And the other interesting way to look at it is that back in the day, when we didn't have all this technology, all this movement, stimulations on a daily basis, humans were more aligned with living with nature's rhythms. They would wake up with the sun, go to sleep at dawn. They only ate food that were seasonally available, fruits and vegetables that were within the season. So they naturally were following the nature's laws, the nature's rhythms.
Yep.
As a result, that was a lifestyle that they lived. There wasn't much thinking that needed to be had. But now we have to pull ourselves to that, to living like our ancestors, to living a little bit more in alignment with nature, to actually take the time to go to nature, take the time to pause, to meditate.
You mean
to
it doesn't
take a
work
deep
if we
breath.
look at it on a TV? 4K?
Unfortunately not.
No, that's very interesting. So you're actually, it's your approach. You're recommending people to follow these patterns, right? To follow the natural cycles.
The natural cycle. So yes, that's one of the very key factors that if one can bring into their life, a lot of shifts start to happen. Your hormones become more balanced, cortisol starts to shift, your mind becomes a lot more at ease because the circadian rhythms, they shift and they become a lot more aligned if you follow the sun's rhythm. So if you can get up in the morning between that golden hour right before the sun, it's about 96 minutes to be exact, before the sun comes up. And if you can just be in your presence, whether you want to meditate or just sit and just be awake during that time,
It's the magical time.
the magical time, you can, and have the first rays of the sun, you know, on your, literally any part of the body and any part of the skin, a lot starts to shift. The physiology starts to shift. A lot goes back into balance. And again, hormones, which is a big deal, and cortisol, inflammation, these are core issues. Anxiety, a lot of things will naturally start to shift once we live in alignment with nature's laws.
What about seasons? Are there specific? I know you mentioned about certain vegetables and fruits, seasonal fruits and vegetables. Are there any other practices, the way that we can align ourselves better with the natural cycles?
Yeah, absolutely. So think about, and this is a question for you. Summer, would you say is Kapha season, Pitta season, or Vata season? When you think about the qualities.
Summer, it's more like fiery.
Fire, so it's Pitta season,
Pitta,
right?
yeah.
And then when you think about fall, where leaves start to kind of die out, things get more dry, things get more cold, what season would that be? We
Is
have,
it a combination of earth and air?
that's exactly it. More air than earth. So when you think about these as qualities, and you just answered them innately, I assume,
Yes.
it's just like innate knowledge, we want to bring in the opposite qualities always to balance that excess. So if the season is Vata season, and we know that the air quality is going to naturally rise, we want to choose foods that are naturally going to have more earth and moisture and warm qualities. That's why we don't really gravitate towards salads in fall. We like salads in summer because it's cooling. It's going to balance the fire season. Versus in fall, we want soups, we want stews, we want our hot ginger spice tea. So there is this innate knowledge that we all have, but we just don't tune in to listen. And that's the thing, like tuning into listening to your needs is something that is completely off the radar.
Isn't it? It's very interesting. I remember the old, Persian, medicine, traditional. We had a lot of, we heard a lot of things like that. This nature of this thing is hot, this nature of this thing is cold. And we had seasonal, foods.
Yes,
If you remember, during
absolutely.
summer, they would give us certain things, during winter, certain things. And we kind of grew up with that system. And these days, I mean, they manage to keep things frozen, I guess, in big fridges. You can have any kind of fruit at any time of year. So, what they were doing in Iran back then, as we were kids, was more like a traditional system, was maybe something along the same
Ayurvedic.
line of Ayurvedic, right?
Yes, actually, the big Hakim in Iran, his name was Abu Ali Sina.
Uh huh.
I know if I'm saying it correctly. He practiced Ayurveda, and
Oh, he did.
yes, so Ayurveda was both originated from India, but also Persia or Iran, ancient Iran. And like you said, our grandmothers, even our mothers, we just knew certain things like opposites. If you had too much watermelon, you need to now have some ginger tea or something that would essentially offset that cool
Yeah.
quality. So absolutely, it's one of those things that the ancient knowledge has been there, and now we're just trying to bring it back and to bring in that awareness. One of the things that I also teach that I think is so important is eating guidelines. Now, we typically eat to get rid of hunger, but to eat consciously, to cook consciously, to bring love into your food, to take that deep breath before you start eating, it can affect digestion. And digestion is the core of our health. So in Ayurveda, if your digestion is working properly, 50% of the challenges are going to eliminate.
Yeah.
Because digestion is the basis of the elements and how they shift and they go into fault, but then they return to their normal state. I can talk more about that, but just to
So,
put it,
food preparation is also part of this Ayurvedic approach? Because what you're
Yes.
talking about is that the way you prepare the food, the way you mix different,
Different
right?
qualities of the food. So, one thing that is essential when it comes to foods that's processed versus foods that you make that are wholesome. Food that is processed does not have, or food that's frozen does not have any prana. Prana is life force energy. So if you have a frozen or a fruit that's not ripe, so let's say a peach that's frozen or it's not ripe when they grab it from the tree and they put it in the truck to bring it to Ralph's, for example, that food hasn't reached either its state of complete life for it to be ready to be offered as food, or because it's frozen, all of the life force energy is like sucked out of it. So that's why eating wholesome foods, foods that you can buy fresh, grains, veggies, fruits, essentially anything that you can buy wholesome and prepare yourself is a lot better. And prana, life force energy, gives us literal energy. People that have a lot of processed food, they have dull nervous system, they have dull energies.
I have interesting story to tell you. That's what you were saying. I'm much older than you, and I remember when I was very young, we didn't have any frozen meat.
No,
Everything was fresh.
fresh.
So every day we would go to the store and we would go to the butcher, we go everywhere. Everything was fresh. I remember when they introduced freezers as in part of the fridge. We had fridge, but we didn't have freezers. I remember my grandma was really against it, and she said, "Not until I'm alive, I'm not gonna allow you guys eat frozen meat. Everything needs to be fresh. Frozen is not good." And she fought,
Yes.
but then gradually it was a big deal back then. Nobody wanted any frozen food. But these days, you look, most of the items we get
Yeah,
are
absolutely.
frozen. So what you're saying is that this is absolutely unhealthy and it's hurting us.
It is. I mean, once in a while, and that's the other rule that I have. You cannot go perfect in any direction because perfection doesn't exist. So it's not so much that all the time every meal has to be prepared in that way, but if 70% of the meals that you consume is driven from wholesome ingredients, you're golden. So, because again, we're living in a world where mass production is a big deal, where GMO is a big deal, processed food is a big deal, and that's just a difficulty that we're facing. But if you can choose most of your decisions based on wholesome ingredients, try to cook yourself more often because seed oils is another thing. Seed oil is in almost every restaurant that you walk into, and it can cause a lot of inflammation in the system. So, to the extent that you can bring in that home food and be very mindful about it, cook with love. The reason I say cook with love is this: we are energy bodies, right? And through our energies, we're constantly transmuting, either receiving or we're giving. So that there's that energy exchange. So when we cook, when we have those intense energies, we're sad, we're angry, we're upset, whatever it is, you're putting a part of that into your food without even being aware of it. So it's important that if you have those intense emotions, or whoever's cooking for you, maybe we don't eat at home today. Maybe, or we can prep something else that's more simple and doesn't require a lot of that active energy being put into the food. So these are some of the lifestyle guidelines that are simple, we may not even think about, but they make a huge impact.
So that intention while you're preparing the food is important. The ingredients are important, right?
Yes.
And what I'm hearing is that it seems that I've witnessed you, and I had this, opportunity of being part of one of the, workshops you had. And I noticed that there are a lot of ritualistic approach towards things. And I think these days what we are missing is that in old times we had a lot of rituals. And when we do certain things, in a ritualistic way, we are bringing a lot of intention and attention and meaning to it. And I think these days we are so busy with working, 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 we are not having any rituals anymore. So psychologically speaking, I think that a part of what you do is also beautiful and impactful is the ritualistic approach of preparing like tea, preparing, you know, different ingredients. And even I see that you use certain beautiful, tools and how you decorate your food. And I see a lot of interesting posts that you put online that shows that the food that you make. So what do you see the aspect of the ritual in the effectiveness of Ayurveda?
That's a beautiful question. So let me ask you a question. When you walk into a temple, no matter where in the world, the second you walk in, what happens?
You feel different.
You feel different. But there's also this sense of, what do I need to adhere to in this temple? If you see everyone's quiet, you're going to naturally be quiet. If you see people are taking their shoes off, you would do the same. If some women have garments on their head, as a woman, if I walk in, I feel like I have to follow that protocol, because temple is a sacred space. And when you walk in, you naturally start to shift towards the rules and regulations of that space, because you want to be part of that sacred experience, correct?
Yeah, because the elements in that temple, they are communicating directly with your unconscious. The symbols, these are important, because the language of our unconscious is symbols, is not words. So when you have different elements, statues, colors, scents, the whole atmosphere is connecting deeper with you. So that's why you get that feeling of awe.
Yeah.
No matter where you go into, doesn't matter if it's a mosque, if it's a church, if it's a temple, if it's a spiritual, place, you get that vibe.
Absolutely.
Because your unconscious starts communicating with it, and I guess that's what you're also referring.
That's what I'm referring to. So there is a sense of reverence.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
So this body of ours is also a temple. We just have forgotten about it. So if we can treat our body with the same reverence as an actual temple that we walk into, realizing that it is communicating with us the same way. The sensory inputs, what I bring into my senses, is that reverence that's going to be created as a subtle body energy, as how I'm going to feel, and the way that the body will be equipped with the right environment for healing to take place. So what I always say, this is my line, your body is your temple. And if you treat it with kindness, love, and reverence, it will naturally hold the energy of balance and well-being.
Okay.
So that's why when we approach food, the food that I eat becomes a part of me. So why make choices that will hurt my body? But again, these are not things that we're actively conscious about, because we're thinking about so many different aspects of life in general. We're busy, we have work, we have kids, we have families, whatever it may be. So it's almost like the body becomes the last resort, because we know it's capable of functioning by itself. It's one of the most incredible machines in life, in history.
Yes.
So that awareness of just taking a deep breath, like when you sit down to eat, take it just one deep breath, arrive at your food, bringing gratitude, notice the ingredients, notice the smells, the different textures, the colors, before you take that first bite. But we're often behind a TV, we're on our phone, we're on our computers, and that's just the way of life. So my role as Ayurvedic practitioner is to very slowly and gently bring that reminder, that sense of reverence, back to the psyche and the body.
Wow. Yeah. I guess along the same way you're saying it, Rumi also talked a lot about the importance of what we eat, that it becomes part of our body. And a lot of people, say that in different spiritual, schools, some of them, they go totally vegetarian. Some go vegan, right? But Rumi was part of the group that they were not vegetarian. And his reasoning was that when you eat an animal, that animal becomes part of it, part of you, which means that it's becoming part of a human life. So I'm elevating
Wow.
the life of that animal. And he has a famous, poem that says that I was earth, died of it, became an, vegetable, and then died of that, became animal.
Wow.
And then an animal, I died, became a human being, referring to how from earth grows vegetables, and then the vegetable is eaten by some animals, and then as human being we eat the animal. So he was saying within these, process, we are elevating the life form.
The
And then he
consciousness.
says So I should not be afraid after I die as a human being. I'm going to even elevate to a higher level. So it's really right along what you said,
Beautiful.
that everything we eat becomes part of us. And it is within our culture, in our tradition, but maybe it's forgotten a little bit.
Absolutely. So that's why I always encourage the idea that we are returning back to our balance, our knowledge, or that innate sense. Because when I share Ayurvedic wisdom, almost always, 90% of the time, it just makes sense to the individual.
Yes.
They don't have a hard time grasping it. But the hard part is applying it to your life as a
Yeah.
lifestyle routine or practice.
Don't you see me? I'm so convinced. I'm sitting here totally convinced. I am really enjoying this.
Yeah.
And also, I wanted to know that if people are interested, obviously, we provide them more information about your presence online and website and everything. Do you conduct any workshops? Do you offer any services?
Yes, absolutely. So I started teaching yoga here at Astana. It's on Mondays and Wednesdays for those that are interested, and it is very holistic. So because of the crazy world that we're living in, just a lot of movement, a lot of stimulation, the classes are really designed to be restorative. We incorporate different practices to really ground the body and the mind. And I also do Ayurvedic consultations as of recently here, which allows individuals to come to address any imbalances of any kind. Whereas I mentioned, we do a comprehensive analysis and then we write a program that's very customized to that individual. And I will have workshops on Ayurvedic lifestyles starting next year, first quarter. So for those that want to dive in a little bit deeper and actually learn Ayurvedic principles that they can apply to their life, to the life of their loved ones at home, it would be a beautiful workshop to come to.
Thank you. And I'm assuming that the way you do it is very individualized approach, right?
Absolutely.
And based on what you said, it's not like a general formula that everybody follows. You assess the individual, you come up with a plan specific for that individual, and you help them implement that plan.
Absolutely. So that's why I consider myself more of a coach, because I guide the individual through their journey, through their healing. And you're absolutely right. Ayurveda is very customized to the individual. It's similar to your fingerprint. No two humans have the same fingerprint. So the constitution that we learn about, your Prakriti, is very specific to you, and your Vikriti is also very specific to you. So whatever program that we design together based on your goals will be very customized, and that's what I help individuals to achieve 1 week or 1 month at a time. And like I said, it's a 6 to 12 month commitment for 2 results to be felt and experienced. But some remedies have a very, very quick turnaround and a quick reaction.
That is fantastic. And we are so blessed to have you, here in Astana helping with us and bringing that energy. As before we start recording, I was telling you, you carry with yourself with a kind of a very calm, soothing energy. And all your efforts in helping the community, helping everyone, we are so glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
And I want to know, this part of the podcast, I want you to tell us something personal, something that you like to share.
For me, I would say something personal is that my offering is always from the heart center. And I think this is something that I learned the hard way, where I used to be a lot more mind. I used to be a lot more in my pitta mind. I used to have a lot of vata energy where I was scattered. I was all over the place. And I think Ayurveda helped me ground my energy so that whatever that I offer as gift that I'm very honored to have and to be able to share with the community, to offer it from that same space of calmness, which I think I had to cultivate in my own life. And to really recognize the body is the temple is a practice that I try to remind myself of every single day, so that I can be that voice of reason if I'm sharing that with the community.
And you carry that energy with you, because I see that when you conduct certain workshops, classes, I see the type of energy you carry with yourself. It's really remarkable.
Thank you.
And it's very important to be, in a sense, the living example of what we preach, right?
Absolutely. And I think learning never stops, and trying to become a better version of yourself, in my opinion, never stops until we die, until we move on to other states of, our being. So I'm a student of life, and whatever I learn, I try to first embody the learning before I offer it, and I think that's something that's very important to me. It's an honor to be here with Astane. Thank you for just this time, for allowing me to speak my truth, to speak Ayurveda, which is really passionate part of my life and my heart. And I'm very excited about all the different workshops and different ways that we can bring this knowledge to the community.
Absolutely. It has been a pleasure. I'm thankful for you being here, spending time with us, and talking about this beautiful Ayurveda. And see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.